What on earth is going on here?
You're asking the wrong question.
Excuse me. Who are you?
I'll be your supervisor here.
My supervisor? I don't have a supervisor. I'm a CEO. Who are you? And how did you get me here?
As I started to say, I'll be your supervisor during your first few millennia, while you're here in heaven.
Heaven. If this is some kind of joke, I'll find out who your supervisor is, and have you fired.
It's no joke. According to my records, your last moments on Earth were spent watching a tornado.
Oh. The tornado. It was coming right at me. I never even made it to the elevator. Wait a minute. If I didn't make it to the elevator, that means I'm dead.
That's what I've been trying to tell you. I came to apologize to you on behalf of Jesus. He would normally be here to greet you himself, but 2,000 people died in the tornado, so he's a bit behind schedule. He asked me to greet you and show you to your accommodations. Now if you'll come right this.
Wait a minute.
What's the matter?
I think you better recheck your records. There's been a mistake.
A mistake? That's impossible. This is heaven. There are no mistakes in heaven. Everything in heaven is controlled by God himself.
Well, then maybe you misread your instructions.
I don't understand. What?
When I first got here, you identified yourself as my supervisor.
Yes. That's right. And
I'm a CEO. I don't need a supervisor. Jesus will probably assign me to be a supervisor or a manager.
no. It said that I had been assigned as your supervisor for the next 3,000 years.
3,000 years.
Oh, it goes by quickly. You'll see. Now if you'll come right this.
Wait a minute.
Is there something else?
No. There's something the same. I am a CEO. I've been a CEO for years. I report to no one. Ever. I don't need a supervisor at all, let alone a supervisor for 3,000 years.
And yet, that's what Jesus commanded.
But this couldn't possibly have been a mistake.
No.
An oversight.
No.
Perhaps Jesus has mistaken me for someone else.
No.
So, if Jesus doesn't have me slated for management or supervision, what does he have me slated for?
You will be mopping the floors in heaven.
You've got to be kidding.
Actually, Jesus has a terrific sense of humor. But he's not joking about this.
You've got to be kidding.
I'm sorry, but Jesus isn't kidding.
A CEO doesn't mop floors.
I don't know how to tell you this, but you died. You're no longer a CEO. As the Bible says, you take nothing into the world and you take nothing out of it, including your job status.
But surely I can be more useful to Jesus as a supervisor or a manager than as a janitor.
Actually, from Jesus' point of view, you would be absolutely worthless as a supervisor or manager here in heaven.
How can you say that?
Jesus supervised and managed through sacrifice and service. And he insists that all of his supervisors do the same.
I can do that.
How would we know that?
How would you know?
Have you ever washed the feet of your employees?
I should hope not.
Have you ever taken a whipping for your employees? Have you ever been hung on a cross?
All right. I get where you're going with this. Jesus sacrificed and suffered a lot for his people.
You had an opportunity to sacrifice and suffer on earth.
I did.
Yes, and if you had taken advantage of the opportunity, you would have probably been more useful to Jesus here in heaven. But
wait a minute. When did I have an opportunity to sacrifice and suffer on earth?
You were offered several ministries in the church, but you chose not to.
Wait a minute. How is doing a church ministry going to make me more useful?
Well, for one thing, you would have worked without pay.
Oh, that.
And, if you're doing your ministry well, you would have worked without recognition or thanks.
Oh.
And if you were lucky in your ministry, people would have heaped abuse on you.
If you're lucky.
Jesus promised that, if you're abused for doing God's work on earth, you will be blessed.
So, this is what he meant.
But since you didn't learn sacrifice and the humility on earth, we'll teach them to you here in heaven.
For 3,000 years.
It'll go by in the wink of an eye. As the Bible says, to God 1,000 years is but a day. Now if you'll come right this way.
Well, with a little sacrifice, I could have been a supervisor or a manager.
Based on a play by Bob Snook. Conditions for use: do not sell any part of this script, even if you rewrite it. Pay no royalties, even if you make money from performances.
You may reproduce and distribute this script freely, but all copies must contain this copyright statement.